Time to cross the T's, dot the I's, the rest of the week's top stories. And with us now, there's Uber blogger Ed Morrissey. You can find him on Hot Air. Economist Lindsay Piegza and Fox Business's own Lauren Simonetti. We start with this business about class warfare. It is on, folks. The president is pitting millionaires and billionaires against everyone else. We talked about this on my radio show, and I compared the salaries of CEOs with some of the celebrities and athletes out there. And Tim from Cedar Rapids, Iowa called, and he thinks CEOs are evil. Tim is our caller of the week.
It really isn't class warfare. It is against CEOs. Lady Gaga and people like that, they get wealthy, but it's through people giving them money voluntarily. Yeah. CEOs don't always get wealthy that way. If the product is not selling very well, a CEO can lower everybody's salary and also get wealthy that way.
So I made the point with him, if you don't like a CEO and you don't buy their product, if you don't like how much a boss is getting paid, go work for somebody else. But this is this class warfare, Lauren, and it is on. And the talking points, it's not just the president. It's going around about everybody on the left side is talking about those millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, he's made it very classist, and we need to remember that we're one nation. We're one people. We all want the same things. If you want the wool, you can't eat the sheep, right? So if you want, everything to go well and wages for everybody to be nice, you can't tax the rich, for instance.
Well,
so it's things like the rich provide for the poor. It's the way it works. Look at the ADP employment report. 157,000 jobs created. 80 or so thousand of them coming from businesses, small businesses, sometimes rich people with less than 50 workers.
Well, there is that old saying, I never got a job from somebody that doesn't have any money. But this class warfare, there's always, it seems like in America, maybe I'm being naive or dreaming or fantasizing, but don't people think maybe I can make a lot of money someday?
Sure, but what we have to remember is we're in a re-election cycle, and Americans are still very upset. Now, of course, ADP did say that 150,000 jobs might have been created this month. That's still an estimate. We haven't received that number. But Americans are still upset. We're at 9% unemployment. And when they're upset, they direct their anger either at the government or at big business. So it makes sense that the Obama administration is trying to misdirect and redirect all of that anger towards big business. It's a very great political stance. When you convince 51% of Americans, the other 49% are to blame, you get elected every time. But that's not how you grow an economy.
Yeah, and Ed, I presume that the reason we're hearing millionaires and billionaires so much, and by the way, millionaires and billionaires are defined by the president as $200,000 and up, which is kind of interesting because that's what he wants to raise taxes on. But this has got to be tested. What do you call it? You go out and do your test marketing to find out what works. And so they must have found that people are mad about millionaires and billionaires.
I think there's a couple of things going on here. First off, I believe that that's correct, that they're probably test marketing this. But the other part of this is that Barack Obama has made several concessions to the center during the last year or so of his presidency, especially on Afghanistan. And I think that part of this is his way to rally the base, rhetorically, to rally the base rhetorically on the left, while still trying to provide some sort of centrist policy platform for his reelection. So I think that there's a couple of things going on here. He got elected on a populist platform, and I think that what he's trying to do is he's trying to restart that to get the enthusiasm back on his base.
Yeah, but won't it backlash? Won't it backlash? I mean, calling other people's names, they're the ones that are fault.
Sure. What they're trying to do is kick the can down the road or point a finger at someone else rather than address the underlying issues, which is a system which is unsustainable. We have to see broad reform.
Don't look over here. The economy's bad. Look somewhere else.
Exactly.
Look at those millionaires and billionaires. All right. Well, next we've got, of course, the Casey Anthony trial has been a media sensation. And one of her lawyers, right after the verdict came in, accused the media of massive irresponsibility. Should lawyers be allowed to be in the courtroom? You want to take this, Lindsay? And also, how about, not cameras in the courtroom and lawyers on television? What do you think of that?
Well, of course. There's a concern that the media convicted Casey Anthony before hearing all the facts. And I think they did, and I think most of the American public did. But I think this is a large credit to our justice system that those jurors were able to look past their bias, look at the evidence presented, and there simply was not enough of a case made to convict her. Was she a poor mother? Maybe. But there wasn't enough evidence to convict her on the murder trial.
All right. Ed, listen, I fight all the time time in the newsroom with all my colleagues in the news business about this cameras in the courtroom thing. I think it makes it into a circus. I've been against it forever, and every one of the journalists that I've ever worked with have always yelled at me about that. They want those cameras in there. What do you think?
You know, I have a nostalgia for court sketch artists. I don't know what to tell you, Tom. I really do. I really have a nostalgia. Look, I don't think the problem is the cameras. I do think that it tends to make people into a little bit more showboat when you have a very highly publicized televised trial. But I think the more that you get cameras into the courtroom, the more ubiquitous it becomes, then I think that tendency starts to even itself out. I do think that the media spent an awful lot of time on this. A study that came out of the University of Minnesota yesterday showed that the media had more stories on the Casey Anthony's trial during its 42 days than it had on any one of the Republican contenders for president. And that is a priority issue that the media really has to address.
That's the American Idol culture, too. Also, it's an escapism, don't you think, in some way, Lauren?
Escapism for the media, like
for people to get away from all the problems. They're watching somebody else that has a worse life than them.
It channels Michael Jackson, and it channels O.J. Simpson, and when they were, in courts as well. But Casey Anthony's not a celebrity. She's a regular hometown girl, and we were so fixated on this, and the ratings were huge, so we kept going after it. But I just want to respond to your camera question, and this comes from covering several cases. When you try to get that attorney on camera, and you make it about the media, you make it about your audience, you make it about telling the people things, those attorneys get really thrown off. They start thinking about other things, and it's a hassle for them, and I've seen it many times. So I would agree with you.
All right,
cameras in the courtroom, and that's coming from a reporter.
All right, you and me. Minnesota. Well, guess what? They're shut down. They can't seem to come to a conclusion on how to balance their budget. But really, does it matter? I mean, they got a $5 billion deficit. More than 22,000 state workers have stayed home. State parks, roadside rest stops, all closed. And so what are people going to do? I got to go right to Minnesota. There, I mean, Ed is in the Twin Cities. So is the Mississippi River still flowing, Ed?
It is. Life goes on. I have to tell you, the shutdown happened, and all I got was a lousy T-shirt. There's not been a whole lot of impact, other than I think attendance was up at the Twins game yesterday. They were playing a day game, so I think attendance was up a little bit. So maybe this is boosting the private sector a bit. Look, this is one of those silly inside baseball, to use the analogy a little bit further, capital stories where you have this massive food fight going on between two different sides, and it really doesn't have a whole lot of direct impact on anybody but the state workers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think for a while, how do you use government by driving on the roads and turning your water tap on? But other than that,
I couldn't disagree with him more.
Okay.
I do an affiliate hit with the Fox affiliate in Minnesota every day. So you hear these things, and the people are annoyed. And guess who's getting pinched? The private sector. Take a look at it. It's called Canterbury Park. It's the horse park in Minnesota, the horse races. They need government approval to do what they do. They make money. They're not making money right now. The people
so they shut down because of the fact that they need the government okay, and so there's a private sector that's been affected by it.
Exactly.
As an economist, Lindsay, what do you, I mean?
You know, this is a problem. This speaks to how deep-rooted our spending issues are in this country, whether it's the federal government currently debating the debt or it's 48 states that currently face budget shortfalls. We don't want to address the problems. We don't want to find long-term solutions. So what we're doing is kicking the can maybe down a week, a year to the next administration because no one wants to lose their political seat. They're not focusing on how to grow this economy. They're not focusing on redirecting capital and labor to the private sector and allow them to make decisions. All they're doing is taking a bigger squeeze of the economy, just thinking me, me, me.
And I got to give you the last word again, Ed, because you're there. But this is the same problem that we're facing in Washington, right? It's tax the rich, and that's the big hang-up.
That's part of the hang-up, but the other part of the story that isn't really getting told is that the Republican-led legislature actually increased spending in its budget proposal. It went from just under $31 billion to $34 billion in the next biennial proposal. and Governor Dayton wanted it to be at $37 billion with the tax on the rich, and he waited 6 weeks to veto those budget bills until the legislature was out of session and couldn't address it. So it's very much hardball here, and it's not the fact that Republicans were cutting spending or starving children in the streets. It's the fact that the Democrats wanted a whole lot more spending than the Republicans were willing to go.
That is a side we haven't heard. And Ed, thank you very much, and Lindsay and Laura, thank you all very much.
Your chance to win at Comment Roulette is coming up after the break. Stay tuned for more of The Tom Sullivan Show on the Fox Business Network.